Quick update on my life drama. I don't know, to all 7 subscribers that never watch my channel. um, a few videos ago, I said, oh yeah, um, I definitely failed that interview, and therefore I need to drill going a bit slower so I don't make as many typos and careless mistakes. It turns out they um, would like to do a final round, but it's kind of weird because the final round consists of both software and hardware. So I will be doing, lightweight Leetcode every day as normal, and then I'll also do some Verilog studies, as well as probably computer architecture and kind of physics studies as well. I don't know if the physics studies and computer architecture studies are of interest, but I might just sort of recite things and just kind of reteach the concepts that I learned in the YouTube channel, both for condensed understanding for future me. I can just rewatch the videos, and also so that I can, if I reiterate and teach the same, physics, computer, architecture concepts, then I will deepen my own understanding as well, and then be more prepared for interviews. And of course, I'm gonna go back to those Verilog questions. Of course, Verilog is a bit harder because I don't think I should probably Google around, but I don't think there's like a lot of questions on Google that are just like Leetcode, but for hardware. I'll need to Google around for that. But if not, I'll just kind of come up with questions. But obviously, if I've come up with the questions, it's quite easy to come up with the answer because I came up with the question. So in that way, it's like maybe not the most competitive environment to study. But yeah, I guess my plan is just, fill up the interview pipeline. Hopefully I get to pass this final round and get an offer, because it's quite exhausting studying in bursts. My current plan of study is I will just keep doing this kind of stuff, and maybe just like a light question each day, and then apply it to 3 jobs every day to try and fill up the interview pipeline. And then also, because I have a couple of interviews coming up that require hardware study, that I'll probably do like 30%, 40% software study, and then the rest of the time will probably be hardware study, probably looking at 8 to 12 hour days, probably ramp it up a bit, and then take it back a bit early to mid next week, so my brain can recover. Anyway, let's get started. You're probably here to see me code, but you should really be here to enjoy the drama. So let's get started. Given string S, return the longest palindrome substring. Okay. So right. So a palindrome is basically when a palindrome is basically when you've got the first and last letter be parallel. The challenge with this isn't checking if the entire string is a palindrome. You're trying to find all palindromes. So I kind of know I wonder if there's like a way to do like DP on this, but I guess the main thing is the obvious way, and I guess the easiest, not the easiest solution, But so notice there's 5 letters here, and then notice in palindromes you can have even or odd numbers of letters. So for example, if you have an odd number of letters, then your middle character doesn't matter. And then if you have an even number of characters, let's say this one, then there is no real middle character to speak of. Okay. And then so as such, we really want to do something where, so keeping that in mind, we can actually check like starting from B, right? B, if B is I being the index equals 0, we can say, well, if the left-hand side is out of bounds, then obviously we terminate the loop there. The other thing that you can do is then if the center was A, let's say, then I equals 1, then you want to just kind of keep expanding the left and right boundaries. And then now you take a look at this substring. This is a palindrome. If it is a palindrome, then go ahead and it's longer than the previous longest palindrome. Go ahead and usurp that into the answer. And then so let's say the initializing the answer would be just an empty string. Of length 0. But then the tricky thing is, like if we were to kind of keep going forward with this B, right, then ABA would be, but then this wouldn't be, right? And because this wouldn't be palindrome, then we would go ahead and then go to the next letter, so on and so forth. But there is a tricky thing here because if you do have an even number of letters, if you do B, right, then this obviously isn't a palindrome. This obviously isn't a palindrome. So actually, instead of, let's say your string is of length n, instead of doing n checks, you actually need to do 2 times n minus 1. So BABAD, and then also like in between B and A, you need to check. And then also in between A and B, you need to check. So like originating from like this gap between A and B, you need to say, well, is A and B equal? Like, yeah, if it is equal, then, then it's a palindrome. Like let's say BB is a palindrome, and then we'll kind of keep going outwards like that. That is probably the trickiest part of the problem. And also the stopping conditions are a little bit tricky as well. And all the indexing is also a bit tricky as well. So let's start with the answer, which is the empty string and max length, which is 0. And then let's just say for I in range of, let's say n is the length of S. And then so 2 times n minus 1 is how many times we would need to do it. So let's say n is 5, then for I in range of 9, which would go from 0 to 8, and if it goes from 0 to 8, then we would go ahead and successfully hit, 0, and then like this is between BA, and then like 2, like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. So so that's the example here, and then maybe as I write this code, it might be educational and better for me visually to actually work through this specific example. So one observation I have is that if I is even, so 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8, that means it's on the letter. And then if it's odd, a gap between letters. So then I can just toggle between the different types of checks based upon whether it's even or odd. So if do a check that's on the letter, do a check where the center of the palindrome is on the letter, and then also else, so it's either even or odd, do a check where the center of the palindrome is in between two letters. Now, if it's 0, it's 0. If it's 0, 1, 2, it's the actual index is 2, and then if it's like 8, then it's actually the presumed center is just gonna be like that, for example. So we don't have to worry about floating point stuff, because if the module 2 is 0, it's even, and we can always say it's divisible by 2. Right. So let's say, index 0, 1, 2. This is gonna be, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So that's the center. And I'll have a left and a right variable. The left and the right variable meaning these sliders that will kind of expand and push out on this thing. So, right. So while left is greater or equal to 0 and right is less than or equal to the n, which is the length of the string, actually, let's initialize it like this. Current palindrome is just gonna be the string's current center. So we start at the center, and so so this is a bound check, and so if the s of left, which is one letter to the left of the current center when we start, is the same as this, then we want to expand our palindrome to like that. And then we also, regardless, want to do something like this. But if it's not equal, go ahead and break. We don't want to append anything to the current palindrome. So all this loop is saying, to reiterate, is that this left and right will just keep pushing out on whatever our center is. Left equals -1, right equals +1, and then we're going to check basically to see if the characters are correct, and we're also going to check if we're out of bounds. As soon as we go out of bounds, there's really nothing to check, and then ergo, if there's nothing to check, then you're done, right? You don't need to keep expanding the boundaries. So for example, BAAB or something. I guess this is like this. then so then if it is if they're not equal, right? Let's say I go BAB and then I push, left equals -1, right equals +1, and then we say, well, left is no longer B is no longer equal to right. Then I go to this else break statement, and then we're out. And then, yeah, we're good. Then our current palindrome is just going to be ABA. And that's what we captured. And then so what we can say after, so this loop says, hey, for every single, even like on letter center, go ahead and detect a longless palindrome. And then so with respect to the current center, we just need to check if it exceeds the current maximum length. So if equals the length of current palindrome, and then also answer equals current palindrome. Now suppose you go here or something, right, and you start here again, and well, first this would just break, right? So your current palindrome is just gonna be 1. 1 is not gonna trigger this case statement, so then our answer won't update and it won't overwrite, like for example ABA. Yeah. So this is quite a bit of a longer code. Let's do pass for now. And then let's maybe read it through once and then handle the case where we're in between letters, okay? So the current center is going to be I divided by 2. So for example, A, left is going to be this -1, and then this is going to be this +1. And then current palindrome is going to start with the center, which is, let's say, A. So while left is greater than equal to 0, in this case it is 0, and then right is going to be 2, which is equal or less than n. If s of left equals s of right, in this case it is, because 0 and 2 are both b's, go ahead and the current palindrome is going to be b plus the current palindrome a plus s of right, which is b again, else break. Okay, and if they're equal, I guess you could just say left plus current palindrome plus left if you want to be cute. And then so, yeah, now then the current palindrome, instead of just being A, will be B plus A plus B, BAB, and then left will be now -1 again, which is -1, right is greater, plus equals 1. So then, of course, this will just break out of the loop. This will break out of the loop, and then the current length is going to be bigger than the max length, which is probably going to be of 1 because the previous iteration was this, and then we will just do this, and then max of length will be updated to 3, and then the answer will be updated to BAB. Likewise here, we're going to start with B, and then, we're going to start with this, and then left will be 1, right will be 3, and then current palindrome will be this current center, which is going to be this B. And we're going to do a bound check here, which is good, and then, this will have ABA, and then, this will kind of push out. This will still be in range where, actually, typo here, n-1. And then, and then so left will be 0, and then right will be n-1 exactly. And s of left equals s of right is not going to be true, so we're just going to break, and we're just going to keep our ABA. ABA is of length 3, which isn't going to be bigger than our previous max length of 3, so the max length equals current palindrome is fine, and then this will be skipped, and we just keep the BAB, for example. All right, so I think I'm pretty satisfied with that, and then maybe I'll just look at the conditionals just one last time, right? This is 2n-1, which is true, because for a string of length n, there's n-1 gaps, right? So it's gonna be n plus n-1 2n minus 1. If it's even, then we have these centers. And then our left must be basically the minimum index, which is 0, and the right must be greater or less than the maximum index, which is n minus 1. And then these will just, update regardless. Right. And then here you would just do an update if it's bigger than max length. All right, next. We have the current center as something else. So let's see what we get here. So let's say 0, 1, 2, 3. It would be between A and B. So I guess what is the left and what is the right? Because there's no real center. So one thing I can say is, since there's no center, current palindrome starts at like this, like nothing. And then I would assume also while left is greater than 0 and right is n minus 1. So instead of doing this, I probably just do left plus right. All right. Current palindrome is like that. Okay, cool. But now we need to figure out the index, right? So for example, 0, 1, 2, 3. Between A and B is where I equals 3. We want left to be 1 and right to be 2. Likewise, if I was 1, and let's say I was like 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We want left equals 2 and right equals 2, 3. Two, 3. So is it true I can say that the left is just going to be int of I divided by 2, which is the floor, and then right is just left plus 1? Does that make sense from like a first principles basis? Like if this was just the divide by 2 thing, let's say for A, and now I'm referring to this as my center, and now I'm here, meaning I plus equals 1, then this same thing becomes my left. And because now this is an odd number, right? Instead of dividing evenly, I divide by 2, we get the same result if we floor I divide by 2. And of course, if we're gonna do a palindrome, then the right character, when we first start, must be adjacent to the left one, right? So, all right, so let's add this first so we don't forget it. And then the next thing that we want to do is if S of left is S of right, right? If they're equal, then the current palindrome is S of left plus S of right. Actually, it's actually just this. So actually, this can probably be because we need to keep building onto it. So, for example, let's say this was BAAB, and then we did it here. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and then our left will be 3 divided by 2 floored, which is 1, and then this would be 2. this will be equal, so current palindrome will be A plus A. This is empty string, and then so now we have AA, and then left will be, you know, this, and then this. They'll be equal again, and then so AA would just be here, and then so B plus AA plus B is BAAB, and then you know, we would then have left equals -1, which means we'll break out of this loop, right? And then if length of curve palindrome is greater than mask length, then go ahead and then just do this, right? So now I'm thinking, well, this is just copy pasted this, so I really have kind of a huge temptation to just have a define here where we say check palindrome left right string, you know, and you would just go ahead and do this. This also forces me to where n is length of s. This also forces me to become a human compiler and just really make sure that I've got everything right. What do I want to return, you know, like yeah, I guess the annoying thing is like passing in max length. So maybe actually I just you know, like that. And then just do current palindrome like this. Okay, I think because, yeah, this could just be moved outside of if else, but yeah, whatever. Okay, cool. So let's just do the same thing here. And we can just do it like this. and like that. And then that'll, yeah, do that. And if the length of the, yeah, so I guess I could move this out here, but then it's a bit sloppy. Well, it's like kind of annoying because then like it's an if else, so I know looking at this, the current palindrome would exist. But it's kind of not initialized as well. So I don't know what the best call is here. Maybe I'll just go ahead, do that, and then do this. And then if this gives me any trouble, I'll shift it back in. But I would say during like an actual interview scenario, I would just keep it inside and then just make a comment that, hey, yeah, maybe, you know, I would just do it outside. So anyway, we do this even odd check with the check palindrome, and then per iteration, we're gonna check if the length of it is bigger than max length. If it is, we're gonna update the max length and then update the answer. And then so at the end, all that's left, once you've run through everything, is just to return the answer. So let's run this. Must be integer. So I guess if you divide it something by 2, it'll get cast as a float. Is that the deal? I want to do more cases. BAAB, AD, as I've looked at above, and also this one. Okay, that did take half hour. Which is fine. Given an array of points where, yeah, that was actually fine because like there's like no debug. Given an array of points where points I is xi, yi represents a point. Okay, so this one is a priority queue, which I don't really quite remember. Python. I mean, there are other ways to do it. That priority queue, like you could just have a dictionary of the distances given each point. Like, for example, this would be, you know, 10. You don't even need to square root it, right? It's 10, and then so you could have a mapping of like 10, and then doing like 1, 3, whatever. And then so you loop through all the points, and then the keys would just be the distance, and then the values would just be all the xy points, let's say 3, 1, whatever. And then so you could have a hash map of all of that, and then once you're done, then you can do like the dot keys, and then just like sort them. And then once you sort them, then you just take the first 0th to kth, because excluding k element, ish. And then, you would just pop as many elements as it would take to satisfy k, and then the ugliness here is like handling these cases, right? So it's a little bit messy. I do like priority queue. Okay. Yes, you can do this. So from queue, import priority queue, and then you just say queue equals priority queue, which, and then you would say for point in points, you don't really need to square root anything. Euclidean distance, Euclidean squared is just gonna be okay. This kind of reminds me of like pair dot first, pair dot second. But anyway, yeah, there's gonna be like 10, for example, for this, and there's gonna be 4 plus 4, which is 8. Yeah. And alrighty, and then so q dot put Euclidean squared, which is the distance, and then I want to then put, this is a tuple, I guess, so a tuple of the Euclidean squared and then comma current point, right? So then now when we go ahead and pop it, each item, we're going to get the lowest distance, lowest k distance, right? I wonder if there's a way to do it in descending order. Probably, but I'll need to look that up. But you could also just, you can be hacky and just multiply by -1. And yeah. Yeah, okay, I guess that's what Stack Overflow recommends too, which is kind of stupid. Okay, but in this case, you don't need to reverse anything, and then therefore, we don't need to multiply by -1 when it comes out. So now that we've shoved everything into the priority queue, like you could also say to interview to do optimization, pop priority queue if dot queue size is greater than k. This will make it so that the priority queue is always going to be of size k or fewer. I don't care to optimize it because I just want to finish this problem right now. But yeah, so answer is just going to be this empty thing, and then what you can do then is say, well, for I in range k, so if k equals 1, we just want the lowest priority thing, which is the highest priority, I guess. And if k equals 2, then you just pop twice, right? K dot get dot get, yeah. Get also pops, I guess. Yeah. Will I have a bigger k than the number of points? So can k be 3, right? What happens if k equals 3? I see. No such thing. T stands for tuple, and tuple of 1 is gonna be the point, right? So then answer dot append this point here, and then just return the answer. I guess if there's any bugs with this that I'm kind of concerned about, it's just the usage of this priority queue. T1 is this guy, T0 is this guy, and then also the other thing is like, what if these numbers are too big and don't fit into like an integer or something like that. This is kind of my question. All right, so let's finish the session here. Oh, that's interesting. This one took 30 minutes. This only took 8 more minutes, but it's like a lot harder. I guess an observation I'm making here is like, it doesn't matter how hard the problem is. If you just like go extremely slow and paranoid, there's almost no debug time, and then therefore like your implementation time is like, I mean, obviously this implementation time is 7-ish minutes longer, but then they don't also give me the, okay, well, I mean, whatever. Oh, okay, cool. This is actually better than median, which, you know, is cool. Yeah, I mean, that's it for this video. I think I rambled on long enough. Daily reminder to eat your probiotics. Goodbye.